Voiceovers are a staple in cinema, which is no surprise since it's probably the easiest way to implement exposition into your story. Just put your actor in front of a microphone, play some B-roll, and voila, it's done. Countless movies have used it and countless more will. However, if not done right, it can hinder your world building and character writing significantly, making your carefully crafted world feel cheap and tacked on. Good exposition is always vital to a film's success and should be seamless with the screenplay's other elements. Therefore, if you do decide to implement a voiceover, consider these 3 key points beforehand for a smooth, fitting, and natural result. Why did that sound like a skin commercial? Oh, anyway, before we get to all that though, I wanted to remind you to like and subscribe. I'm aiming for 1,000 subscribers at the end of the year and your help will be much appreciated. And yeah, don't forget to take notes, there will be a quiz. Mickey 17 from esteemed director Bo Jung-ho, excuse me for the pronunciation, was one of my most anticipated movies of the entire year. I thought Parasite was a great film and the sci-fi space setting of Mickey is right up my alley. The trailers looked good and everything. I was extremely excited and confident it was gonna be one of the best movies of the entire year. I'm also a big fan of Robert Pattinson and his recent work. Of course, I loved him in The Batman, but let's not forget how good he was in other projects like The Lighthouse and voice acting in The Boy and the Heron. Unfortunately, we know now in retrospect, that was not really the case. In no way was Mickey 17 horrible. It's a pretty good film. It has some good themes and ideas, great acting from Robert Pattinson himself, and I loved Mark Ruffalo as the parody religious fascist. He was just hilarious. All those good things, however, could not save the narrative that was drowning from the weight of bad exposition. Specifically, the maybe 30 minutes or so at the beginning of the movie where Robert Pattinson's character Mickey does a voiceover monologue for that entire time. It completely drags the pacing and ruins the interest I had for this world. Don't get me wrong, Mickey 17's futuristic world with unseen tech and unique societal groups definitely needs some exposition to work. We also need to know what an expendable is in the first place, which is so central to the story. All this crucial background information is totally necessary for the narrative to even function. It's the implementation of that exposition and its indulgence throughout the film that bother me. Back in the day of, say, the first Star Wars, point-blank exposition was needed to get the audience up to speed with a world never seen before. Moviegoers in the 70s didn't have the years of experience with these types of universes before and therefore needed a little bit more than we do today. The sequel trilogy didn't truly need a text crawl for the audience to understand the movie anymore because we know what Star Wars is, we've grown up with it. They still do it out of tradition of course, which is fine, but you still get my point. Modern viewers are familiar with Mickey 17's world building even before setting foot in the theater, so you can trust your audience to get it and not waste valuable screen time on redundant information. The duplicate plotline needed more time to fully flesh out the two characters, their differences mentally and philosophically as well as the romance plot. We don't get enough in the second act with these characters together interacting because all the screen time got eaten up with unnecessarily beefy first act. It feels like forever before we even get the two Mickeys on screen, which is the main draw of the movie. And when we finally get to that two Mickeys plotline, which is maybe halfway through the movie already, they only interact for maybe 1 or 2 short scenes and then promptly get split up and rushed through the third act. I'll reiterate, voiceovers are fine sometimes, but repeating information that's already on screen or known by the audience beforehand is a waste of time. You run the risk of severely hindering the movie's pacing and taking valuable screen time away from the other scenes and characters that needed it more, such as in the case of Mickey 17. In today's post-MCU world, it might seem completely unnecessary to have an opening narration in the first Raimi Spider-Man. They do become more and more pointless in the following sequels, but that's beside the point. If we look back to 2002, this was the first Spider-Man movie. General audience didn't know what to expect and needed the exposition to get up to speed. Although I wasn't even alive yet when this movie came out, so I wasn't there to witness it in person, but I'll assume that's how it was. Now, at least basically everyone knows who Spider-Man is, so doing an exposition dump in 2025 would seem ludicrous and talking down to the audience. So at least it's somewhat necessary for the story. I still believe that it doesn't really work, unfortunately. Personally, I believe Tobey Maguire is the worst out of the 3 live-action Peter Parkers. I'm sorry to all the Tobey stans, but his performance leaves a lot to desire, both in and out of costume. And I know, I'm gonna get a lot of shit for that, but it's true. I'll make a video about it if people want it, but it's true. And his voice acting in the opening narration is a clear example why this is the case. Man, he just sucks at these. I wouldn't say it's badly written or anything, it's just his voice that makes it so dull and uninteresting. Sounds almost like he's phoning it in. His delivery is stiff and soulless, being monotone the whole way through. I don't even know what more to add. There's no real deep analysis of what he did wrong beyond just saying that he was bad. So, yeah, he was bad. I'm sorry. Avatar: The Last Airbender is my favorite show of all time. It's simply incredible. I love it with all my heart. When I was a kid, I used to watch the Avatar marathons on Nickelodeon on Sundays in the middle of summer, and my mom would always complain like, why aren't you outside in the sun playing with other kids? But I just loved Avatar so much I couldn't miss a single second of it, which made it even more disappointing when Netflix dropped a live action remake last year and it fell completely flat. It's not a bad show, it's pretty decent, but it kind of betrays the OG Avatar in a lot of ways, and one of the biggest is how they handle exposition. Katara's opening exposition at the start of each episode is one of the most iconic voiceovers ever recorded, serving its purpose of informing the audience perfectly. It's short, sweet, and provides Katara with some characterizations along the way. Since the show is very episodic in nature, it really helps people that missed a few episodes or start in the wrong order to get familiar with the premise and the world building, which definitely has some intricacies. That probably isn't as big of a deal or an issue in the current streaming era, but back in the day it was crucial when just catching a random episode on a Monday on Nickelodeon before school started. Oof, nostalgia just hitting me right now. When it came time to remake the classic series into live action, you'd think the opening narration would be one of the easiest things to interpolate, right? Just copy and paste, simple as that. However, that is not the route Netflix took. I'ma just ignore the version that shall not be named. Obviously it's one of the worst movies ever made, so harping on one single issue seems a little reductive in like an opposite way. It needs to be hated as a whole. And no one, after watching 3 seasons, 61 episodes of a show, still think the main character's name is pronounced have a right to an opinion. Like, ugh, it's disgusting. So like, obviously disrespectful. Okay, calm down, it's just a movie, it can't hurt you. Anyway, after that disastrous movie, I thought that Netflix couldn't do worse, which is true. The new show is 100 times better, but it still was a little disappointing in my eyes, like I said before, and the intro is a clear example why. Like I said, it should have been simple. Copy the dialogue, the visuals, and everything. Slap on a Netflix logo in the corner and call it a day, and no one would have complained. Yet they still managed to fuck it up. Instead of letting one of our main characters, Katara, do the exposition like in the show, they give it to Kyoshi, which is a baffling choice. She doesn't have a single line in the first season of the OG show and is basically irrelevant to the main plot throughout the entire show. The only thing she truly contributes is the creation of the Dai Li, but we don't even know that when we're watching the show. We only learned that from a book much later on, so I don't know if that counts even. Yes, she is much more relevant in a Netflix remake, serving kind of the Roku role, sort of, which is a whole nother can of worms of baffling decisions in my opinion. But Katara really needed the opportunity to shine, since how it stands right now in season 1, she's severely underwritten and desperately needed more characterization. Man, like char- characterization. You know what I mean. Since she's really bland, since they kind of stripped every single character trait she had from her, it's just it's baffling. It would be fine, I guess, if the writing was the same, but no, they couldn't do that. The writers somehow fucks that up too. They let go of the simple, short, and concise version that the OG show has and replace it with an overly worded and repetitive exposition dump that character in the show later explained again and again, so the intro wasn't even needed more. Just in that first episode, a little later on, Gran explains it all again, like the exact same things. I'm just so confused. Like, I just can't with this show. Like, how is it even possible to be this incompetent? Anyway, there is my checklist for how to make a voiceover work in a movie or show and not feel overly forced or unnecessary. Number 1, do you actually need the exposition? Number 2, is your acting doing a good job? And number 3, is the writing of the voiceover concise and clear? If there's something I forgot, just tell me how dumb I am in the comments. Just remind me. And I'll remind you again to like and subscribe, because apparently that's something I should do. And yeah, anyway, thank you for watching and have a nice day. Peace.